Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it. Kevin, what's going on, sir?
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, man. Let's get to it.
Here we are again.
Yes, sir.
I don't know about you, but we have had some beautiful, beautiful spring weather here these last couple weeks, or at least enough of those days. Kind of got hot, remember, there for a couple days, and then it turned into actual spring, maybe even.
Yeah, it's actually, these are normal temperatures, but they feel like ultra cool, right?
Yeah.
Hey, just out of curiosity, did you report the larceny, the breaking and entering that occurred in your space there? Because somebody came in, stole all your stuff.
I know.
It's
it
gone.
is, yes. Yeah, and it's still, yes, just for situational awareness for everybody. I'm now in what used to be my office. It's now my wife's office, and she's in the process of pimping it out. But it's still en route. And she's got this cool sign there. Can you read it? Kind of like that. It says something like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to turn around and read it.
Hold on, I'm trying to read it. Stand by. Take the something. Take the
risk. Take the risk
on love
or lose the chance.
Or lose a chance. All right, cool.
Yeah. So anyway, there you go.
Apparently, I need to go back to the eye doctor.
If I have to do this again here, I'm sure there'll be flowers there and foo-foo there and
right,
foo-foo there and whatever.
Yeah, your brick wall looks better behind you now in your new office. But
okay,
just had to call out the fact that this that was previously decorated with all your cool stuff looks a little barren right now.
It does. It looks like, yeah, you're right. Anyway, sorry about that.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
We'll get through it.
Yes, sir.
Look, it's just a matter of your perspective. That's it.
Absolutely. You know, it doesn't change the quality of content that is going to come from your end of this audio connection.
That's right.
It just does change the view a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great little segue.
Yeah, that's good.
I like how you did that.
Yeah, slipped that right in.
Yeah, you did.
What are we talking about?
Well, that thing you call perspective, there's a certain amount of mystery involved with that. And I think we should have a discussion about the whole mystery of perspective and how we don't really understand it to the degree that we could, should, or have the ability to.
Do you think we ever will?
I think the official answer to that is it depends, because it's ultimately situational.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
You know, while I think that you know, with your intention, you may do a better job in certain scenarios when you have the you know, top of mind thinking to evaluate, you know, what perspective it is that you are seeing this through, right? So I guess the first thing we need to do is talk about what perspective is, right? And perspective to me, my understanding of the word is basically, and this is my summary of, you know, what you might find in a dictionary somewhere, but ultimately it's the lens through which you see the world, from wherever you are, whenever you are viewing this particular scenario or evaluating the facts and circumstances that are going on. It's whatever lens you're looking at it through at that particular moment in time.
And therefore your interpretation of what's going on.
Exactly.
Which could be, it really is amazing. how two people watching the same event can walk away with completely different perspectives, conclusions, takeaways, all of that stuff. It's actually remarkable.
Yeah, it really is. That reminds me of, the old stories about interviewing crime witnesses. And, it's like the two people they were in the same space. There might even be video footage that show that they were in the same space, and they tell you two completely different stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it?
Descriptions are different. It just, I think, there's so many things that come into play there, people's response to stress and so on. But yeah, there's, perspectives are interesting for sure. And you always bring yours to the table. The question is, are you able to step outside of your own perspective when appropriate and evaluate, or at least have the empathy to put yourself in someone else's shoes, right? We've heard that old phrase for years, right? Don't how does one variation of it goes? Don't judge a person until you've walked a mile in their shoes, or something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
So, it's different based on who the person is and what their experiences have been. And, I think there's a lot of value in being able to, kind of pump the brakes a little bit in certain scenarios when appropriate, and evaluate it from somebody else's perspective that is involved in it as well.
You bet. You bet. And there's a real danger in not trying to empathize or not seeking first to understand where they may be coming from. And even if, like you said, it's on video or it's on audio, people can still hear it, see it, and still walk away saying, no, that's not what happened.
Right.
I was there. It's remarkable. And I have a story. I got to rewind in my life. This was my first sort of get hit in the face with different perspectives and how it can impact how you live your life. And then fast forward to today and what that means. But if I go all the way back to my college days when I was at the Coast Guard Academy, I sat on this thing called the honor board. And the honor board was supposed to investigate honor violations. And if you were convicted by this honor board of having committed an honor offense, which is lie, cheat, steal, or attempt to deceive,
Right.
then you were discharged. You were kicked out of the academy, which is a big deal because, the academy is, it's a sweet deal in terms of going to college because it's all paid for and you have a guaranteed job on the other end and all of these benefits. And so there was a cheating scandal that involved two cadets, and one cadet put the other one up, accused them of cheating on an exam, and there was a whole big investigation. And the honor board was presented with all of the evidence, and we went through this whole thing. I mean, weeks of testimony, and because this is a big deal, formal investigations, review of the investigations, questioning of the parties, and so on and so on. And then finally, when all was said and done, we had the two of them sitting in front of us. We presented them with the facts as we knew it, and we said, "There's no way that both of your stories can be right. One of you is lying. So who's going to fess up? Who's lying about what happened?" And so now there's a potential second honor offense because you're not supposed to lie.
Right.
And it was amazing. They both stuck to their guns. So we gave each one of them the opportunity to talk through their stories from their own perspectives.
Right.
And when you heard it coming from their voice, their interpretation of what was going on, what they saw, what they thought that meant to them when they saw it, and so on, you walked away with, they're both right. It's amazing.
Right. And they're both telling the truth, right?
Yes.
When confronted.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was, we ended up concluding that it wasn't an honor offense. And so because we couldn't pin it on them when you actually listen to their own perspectives and their own testimony. Nice. And it was like, wow, this happened. There were witnesses. All kinds of people saw it. It's all in the investigation. And when you talk to the people themselves and you get their perspectives, it's a head scratcher. And you go, wow, that how on earth we can't hold that person accountable to that, because that's not how they viewed it. Fascinating.
So how do you, and I think you answered this based on sharing that story, and I appreciate it. How do you get somebody else's perspective or understanding thereof, right? So how do you get yourself to kind of shape shift over into taking their perspective and seeing the world through their eyes at that particular point in time?
Yeah, I think
what are your suggestions for that?
my suggestions are Stephen Covey's seek first to understand and then be understood. If you approach it from that perspective and you just sort of set your own perspective aside and say to the other, tell me what happened. Tell me what you think. Tell me why you think it. Let me understand where you're coming from, why you're coming from there. And then actively listen, dig into it. Don't just, let them make one pass at it, but wow, you said this. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Right.
Because, and then once you get that, then you can have a real discussion about it. And for me, that's the single best thing you could do. I don't know. What do you think?
So I think you're spot on, right? The one that I want to key on in particular, though, is having the conversation and asking the question to better understand how you got to this point, right? So tell me about what it is that is the brick and mortar, if you will, or the foundation of your belief in this particular scenario. I want to better understand why you feel this way.
Yeah.
And I think there's it's interesting because there's a lot of division going on in our society right now, and it's not, I can't say nobody because I think there are people out there, but there not enough people, I'll say that, are taking time to have conversations with the radical people on either side. And sometimes that's impossible because those people are not willing to engage in conversation with anybody that has a potentially different view than theirs. And in those cases, that just is what it is, right? You you just need to disengage and move on. You're not going to change their mind. In those scenarios where somebody is at least open to having the conversation and sharing with you their views, you may have the opportunity and very well get a whole different view or perspective on why they feel that way. And once you hear that story, you might conclude that, it's actually reasonable based on those set of circumstances that they just described for them to feel that way. Now, your life may have been lived completely different and you didn't have that same set of circumstances. And so you have a completely different perspective on the very same subject. And to your point, you're both right. And again, it depends on the subject matter, right? I mean, there's some things where there's a right and there's a wrong, and that just is. But sometimes that's not the case. And I'd say probably in more cases than not, there's not always a clear right or wrong.
You're right. It's a gray area, and I think you're spot on. I think many of the hot button political issues that we are experiencing, whether it's race relations or social justice or you name it, you name any hot button, abortion versus, the choice to what a pro-choice and
Right.
versus pro-life. Goodness gracious, why did I have so much trouble getting that out? All of that stuff is if you took a minute to understand, and here's the problem today. I've actually given this a lot of thought. Here's the problem today, because we have AI, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but
Right.
we live in an electronic world, and so when you're reading newspaper articles that tend to be sort of aligned with your perspective, then what happens? The AI learns about what you like to read, and it starts feeding
Feeds
you
you more of it. Yep.
more and more of it. And so you get stuck in your own little bubble and you're not getting the alternative point of view. And so all of a sudden you can come to the conclusion that how can those people over there on this side be so wrong? How can they not understand what to me is crystal clear? Because I've read a gazillion articles on it and all of them are saying the same thing. And what you don't know is there's just as many gazillion on the other side with a different perspective, but you're not seeing that. So you get trapped in this bubble. And so you're right, just throw it off, get rid of all that stuff and just say, okay, have a
Right.
conversation and find some common ground.
Yeah. Stop going through life like an adult and go through life. I mean, I've said before, I'm a grown ass 12-year-old, and that works in many, many scenarios. And I think sometimes that's too grown up. I think that sometimes we need to operate like 2-year-olds when we're walking around asking that question, why, 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 and having that constant state of inquisition and curiosity,
Right.
because that's how we learn. And at some point, we've decided in certain subject matter areas that we've learned everything we need to know about that, so we can just declare this is how we are.
Right.
I don't know. Is that a good way to be? Maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can find yourself in this trap all the time. And I think it really is a trap. And it takes mental discipline to stop for a minute. And just again, I believe that we humans have much more in common than we have different from each other.
Amen to that.
With some exceptions, of course, there are always exceptions, but there, as I say many times, we share our humanity
Right.
with other human beings.
Right.
And so if we just took a minute and live and let live. I'm going to live my life, you live your life, let's find the common ground between us. We're going to have differences, and I want to understand your perspective so I can be empathetic toward it and understand that I don't want to push those buttons with you, and so I'm going to make the conscious decision not to. You know Unless it's something that's just wrong, as you said. And if it's clearly wrong, then no, I don't want to empathize with your position, and no, I'm not going to do that or agree with that. But most of it is not that. It's a gray area. I mean, much of life is in the gray area.
Yeah. So this just occurred to me, right? So I know you quoted Stephen Covey earlier talking about seek first to understand before seeking to, I forget exactly how that flows, but seek first to understand, yada yada, before being understood.
Right.
Totally butchered that. But anyways, the thing that I think comes before that, right, before understanding, is respect, because I don't think you can get there. I don't think you can even set out on the path of attempting to understand without respect. You have to respect the other person that you're dealing with, and their right to have a different perspective.
There you go. There you go. That's well said. I just can't add anything to that because I think it's perfectly stated and exactly right.
But you can say the Stephen Covey thing again accurately, so that that clears it up for everyone, since I butchered it so badly. So
You're close to it. Like me, like pro-choice and pro-life.
yeah,
Be
there you
first
go.
to understand and then be understood.
There you go. All right. Yeah, totally butchered that. Yeah, respect. That's a cool word. Imagine how different your life could be using that as a guiding principle every day.
Right. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
And all humans, every single one of us, deserve respect.
I think I just had a mustache hair that decided it wanted to leave its residence and move onto my tongue. That was odd. How do you like do that discreetly? You really can't. I'm like, that's why I verbalized it, because otherwise it would be like, what the hell?
Oh goodness. All
All
right.
right. So anything else from your perspective to add on this conversation about perspective and the mystery thereof?
I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you for doing so. And it's a great thing for all of us to keep in mind that everybody has their own perspective, which means everybody has their own reality. And you have to respect it. You're right. Start with respect, and then if you have to work with this person or be around them, seek first to understand.
Yeah, and understand that the perspective that you have today on any given subject is not etched in stone. It can change based on age, experience, greater knowledge, different. Yeah, I mean, it's a flexible thing. It's not something, I mean, there's some that are absolutely ingrained in stone, right? And then there's many that can definitely change over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I'm going to change our perspective right now, and I'm going
All
to
right.
over here, and I'm going to hit that button, and I'm going to say something like this: no matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing, make sure between this podcast and the next, you take time to enjoy
the ride.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.